Aha! There you are. Excuse me a second. Now, you find me here in Inverness Castle on a sunny weekday morning. And as you can see, they're having a bit of work done here at Inverness Castle. But if you had found me here very nearly 1,000 years ago, well, that castle wouldn't have been here at all. But they do say there may have been a castle there before, right here in Inverness, when this would have been part of the Kingdom of Moray. And they do say, also, they do say, that the king that ruled from here may well have been the most famous king of Scotland of all time. And that's the king that we now know as Macbeth, largely because very few people can pronounce, including myself probably, Macbeth at Macfinlech, which would have been the king's real name. But also, people don't really know what kind of guy this Macbeth was. Now, an old friend of mine, a bit of a uppity poet from the West Midlands, I used to know him years back. I remember sitting in the pub with him once talking about this, talking about the guy that I knew and the stories that were remembered. And he said, "Do you know what, Bernie? If there's any doubt, always print the legend. That's how I made my money. Never mind who Macbeth was and what he was really like. Bums on seats, mate. If you want bums on seats, print the legend." So what I'm going to attempt to do now in telling you the story of Macbeth here from the centre of Macbeth country is to try and mix together a bit of the real history with the story as that Shakespeare bloke told it. So this is the tale of Macbeth and the witches. Now, as I say, history tells us that King Macbeth was a very good and religious ruler of Alba, otherwise known as Scotland. This historical Macbeth was known as the Red King, not because of a bloody reign, but because he had lovely long flowing ginger hair. Stories, however, tell us something very different, and stories are often far more interesting, as the Brummie Bard said. According to the old fireside tales, Macbeth was first given the idea of stealing the crown of Scotland when he had the great misfortune of meeting 3 hideous witches on a blasted heath. Before the Normans invaded England, Scotland was divided between lords known as Thanes, and Macbeth was Thane of Glamis. And anyway, he was on his way back from killing lots of people when suddenly there appeared before him this trio of mischievous creatures. Some say they were fairies. Long before they were ever called witches, they were fairies. But then you have to wonder also whether the gender of these evil creatures might also be some kind of terrible patriarchal lie that came along later on. So I'm just going to call them not weird sisters, but weird siblings. Anyway, these weird siblings were dancing and cackling around a fire as Macbeth approached through the mist. Some say he was with his pal Banquo, but let's be honest, he was just chucked into this story to impress the King of Britain at the time when Shakespeare was making this stuff up. So we'll stick to Macbeth on his own. Anyway, they said this: a drum, Macbeth has come! All hail Macbeth, Thane of Glamis!" "What are you?" Macbeth cried.
"All hail Macbeth, Thane of Cawdor!"
"The Thane of Cawdor lives," Macbeth bellowed back, but they just grinned greasy smiles and they continued, "All hail Macbeth, that shall be King of all Alba!" Now, the ruler of Scotland at this time was actually, as I say, King Duncan, and like a good servant of the crown, Macbeth demanded, "I am King Duncan's loyal soldier. Leave me be, you foul midnight hags." The strange, toothless and bearded beings made it clear to the brave warrior that he was fated to wear the Scottish crown whether he liked it or not, and in one fell swoop they sowed the seeds of an ambition which would turn the noble Macbeth into a power-hungry tyrant. With their wicked work done, these witches, fairies and weird siblings vanished into the air like popped bubbles, and only then did a messenger arrive to tell Macbeth that he had been made Thane of Cawdor. Yes. When Macbeth returned to his castle, which they say was right here in Inverness, he told his wife Gruach, the Lady Macbeth, all about the prophetic way that the ugly sisters had hailed him as king, and that he was already made Thane of Cawdor. Being a very ambitious woman, Gruach aided her husband in forming a dastardly plan. Maybe a little more patriarchal lies coming in there, but never mind, let's move on. When King Duncan visited their castle here at Inverness with his whole family, all were plied with strong booze until everyone at the party fell fast asleep. Then the power-hungry couple crept into the king's chamber, and Macbeth plunged 2 daggers deep into the poor man's chest, while his wife smeared the drunken guards with gore so they would be thought guilty of the murder. Drenched in blood as they were, Macbeth and Gruach were crowned king and queen at the ancient Scottish royal seat of Scone. Those weird siblings had been proved exactly right. But to be king, Macbeth said, is easy enough, but to stay king is much harder. Bloody deeds became everyday business for King Macbeth, and Gruach soon felt haunted by the crimes they had carried out, and would wash her hands all day long as if she could never wash the blood away. But although he too was haunted by the grizzled ghosts of the friends he had slain to wear the crown, Macbeth could not undo what he had done. The tyrant's rule was grey, miserable and bloody, so the tale runs. Actually, it was 17 years he was on the throne, and he did a lot of good. He went to Rome, he used to hand out money like rain, and everybody loved, as I say, his lovely long strawberry blonde hair. But that was those times, and we are dealing with the legend as we know it. They say that it was a rainy, cold, dricht and terrible, bloody rain that he reigned over. And who are we to argue with that? Because very little archaeological evidence has turned up. Guys, have you found anything yet? Any proof of Macbeth? Any proof he was a good bloke? No? Okay, well, we'll stick with the legend for now then. Okay. Anyway, he slaughtered many innocent folk to keep his throne safe from murderers like himself. What worried Macbeth most was that Duncan's son, Malcolm, had escaped to England, where he was planning to invade and reclaim the throne. So fearful did King Macbeth become that he set out once again to find those 3 weird siblings. Eventually, he came across them all prancing around their cauldron, singing a tuneless song as they threw their ingredients into a great big boiling pot.
Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble, eye of newt and tongue of dog, liver of a warty frog. By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes.
Macbeth demanded, "You foul-bearded hags, tell me if I will continue to rule as king." And one by one they danced around him, each singing, "Macbeth shall never be vanquished until Birnam Wood marches to Dunsinane. No man born of woman shall ever kill Macbeth in battle. But the children of Macbeth shall never rule as kings." Macbeth laughed at this last prophecy. "How can my rule ever fail if I am safe from being beaten by anyone born of a woman? Everybody in the world is born of woman. And I am also safe as long as Birnam Wood stays where it is, many miles from my castle. Trees do not march." And so the witches popped into the air once again, and Macbeth returned home, content that the crown was secure on his head. Now, this may have been his home that he returned to, but also they say he built a brand new castle further south in Dunsinane, and that is where Birnam Wood was within sight. Anyway, word soon came that the English forces had set foot in Alba and were baying for King Macbeth's blood. Many of his thanes and subjects, they all ran away, but even left all on his own, and even with the news that the Queen's anguished sleepwalking had claimed her life, Macbeth did not shake with fear. It was only as he took to his battlements and gazed out to the horizon that he saw what looked for all the world like a moving forest. Young Malcolm had ordered his soldiers to cut down the trees from Burnham Wood and camouflage themselves with the branches as they moved in for the attack, and his plan had worked. Macbeth fled from Dunsinane to do battle with Malcolm in a village called Lumfannon, and when the battle was in full swing, it seemed nobody could get anywhere near Macbeth, whose sword dripped with blood as he swung it to and fro, an untouchable warrior. Then Malcolm's finest soldier, Macduff, the Thane of Fife, whose whole family had already been put to the sword by Macbeth, appeared before the bloody king and challenged him to a duel. "Lay on, Macduff!" "Ha ha ha ha!" Macbeth laughed. "Nobody born of woman can beat me." Then it was Macduff's turn to laugh. "Ha ha ha ha! I entered the world before my time, Macbeth. The doctors had to cut me from my mother's belly, and so I was never born of woman." Only then did Macbeth realize the trick that had been played on him by the three weird siblings. He'd been their toy all along. But be that as it may, brave at the last, Macbeth fought Macduff until he was exhausted, and at the very end, as the sun began to set, the king's head was sliced clean off, and his cruel rule was over. King Malcolm was crowned at Scone, and nobody heard from those three cackling witches stroke fairies stroke weird siblings ever again. But if, like me, you come up here to Moray and to the Highlands, and you do happen upon a trio of bearded old weirdos singing tuneless songs around a bubbling cauldron on some kind of blasted heath or other, just remember Macbeth and be sure never to believe a single word they say. Aye. Who says that fake news is a new invention? Think on, and before you go, enjoy. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace till the last syllable of recorded time, and all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow. A poor player who struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.